about. What is the way to God? Is the deen of Allah. Deen Allah. Now let's talk about the subject of this fiqh. It means understanding, basically how I understand and how I can implement what I'm being taught. I would like to give one example at least so you can get a feel for it, and then we'll give you the website so that you can use that to follow up with at the end of the program. The example here would be one called hijab, or the covering that women wear. In the Quran, by the way, is part of the Sharia because it doesn't change. That's definite. The Quran is fixed. It doesn't change. So in the Quran, it tells us in chapter 24, verse 31, that's Surah An-Nur, about the covering for women, saying that they have to drop down their khimar over their juyubihinna. Now, how do you understand that? Well, it means basically she's supposed to be covering the upper portion of her torso, especially the area of the chest, because in those days a lot of the women exposed quite a bit of that area of their body, and of course it's not something good for believers to do. The covering for the nuns, for instance, in the Catholic Church and the early Christian women, all was very conservative. And basically all you could really see of women in those days were their faces and their hands. This is also what we see today, even now, amongst the women of Islam. Many of the Muslim sisters still dressing in a very conservative manner like that. And we might say, well, now, exactly what is prescribed, and then how come not all the people are doing it? Because obviously there's a lot of differences here, so which is right? What's prescribed is a covering. Now, the next thing to do is to understand covering what, how, when, where, not necessarily why, but it happens to be explained here. Why? Because you will be recognized as a Muslim lady. This is mentioned in this verse and in another verse in chapter 33, verse 59. What's happening here is we're getting a good understanding now that covering is important for women. Covering is important. They have to wear something called jilbab, abaya, this covering the khimar over them. We get the idea now, but exactly how? Okay. One of the great scholars of Islam was asked the same question, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and the demonstration he gave was to throw his own covering over himself and then part it so that like one eye was available to look out, look around and see. But basically he was showing to cover everything up. Scholars even now have said that essentially all women should be covered, all the Muslim women should be covered up, but that if their face is exposed, hands are exposed, to do what they need to do. This is all right. And then the next thing we find that if they want to cover their whole face, this is not forbidden, but it wasn't something mandated. Meaning that if a woman didn't cover her whole face, certainly she wouldn't be punished for it, but if she did, could be more reward for her. Another thing it clearly states here is who she should cover in front of and not cover in front of. She should not cover in front of her own father. There's no reason to cover in front of him, her brothers, or in front of her, children, in front of a list. It's provided here. Don't cover in front of them. Other than that, then she's free to cover in front of these people because they don't have any business looking at her beauty, looking at her attraction, and so on. This is kind of important because even in talking to my own wife and my own children, because my daughters are grown, and I'm telling them that, and I said that, there is something in Islam, it's part of the Sharia, which is called the awra. Now, the awra is for men and women both. Between the navel and the knee, this cannot be exposed. You cannot show that to anybody. That's private, very private, okay? But after that, the man doesn't have to wear a top, but if he does, it's really better, okay? The woman, she should wear the top, and especially if she's in front of men who don't need to see her, then she will cover also her hair, she'll cover her, her legs and so on. So what we've understood here now is that this is the basis of the who, what, where, why is mentioned because this is the sign of the believers. This is showing that she's, going to be protected by Allah. Then there's another thing though, what color? We find in some countries the women wear all black. Iran, Saudi Arabia, places like that, you will notice they're all black. Some of them, they're always covering like this, covering their faces, or at least part of it. So here now is going to be understanding. How they get to this is through different teachings of Islam that are clear, and some of the teachings that are specific, and some of the teachings which are allowing a person to adjust for their particular ahwal, or conditions. So if a woman, and you go to Africa, for instance, you find the women there have beautiful hijabs, and when I say beautiful, I mean they are something else. They've got colors and flowers and, very bright and brilliant, but they still cover the same part of the body. And then in some other countries, you'll find that they're going to be wearing more conservative in colors, but they're still having colors. Maybe they'll have blues or pinks and things like this, but more not so ornate. And then in other places, maybe they'll be wearing grays and browns and things like this. All of these are permitted, provided there's evidence in Islam that this could be acceptable and that it doesn't contradict the very essence of the Sharia. I'm sure I brought up a lot more questions in your mind with this. I know we didn't detail enough of it. You can't in these short episodes. That's why I'm going to give you the website. Go there and get some information. Then if you want to write back to us, we've got a place there for you to do that as well. Beautiesofislam.com. That's the name of the program. That's the name of the website. And until next time, peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Islam is